So we'll go ahead and we'll press start on 3, and then if someone could please let me know when the book introduction is over.
Absolutely.
So 1, 2, 3.
I won't be able to help you with that, Sherry. You should say when it's over, because I'm just going to be focused on this.
Book's done. Welcome. All done. This looks like fun. My favorite line is coming up soon.
One of my favorite things just in world building in general, in fictional worlds, science fiction, fantasy worlds, one of my favorite aspects of world building are sports that are like sports that are created for that world. Card games, like in Battlestar, something like this. I just think that it's so important. People forget about some of the little aspects of world building, like
it's
sports.
humanity.
Yeah. I mean, just those little things. You usually like world building focuses more heavily on like the big stuff, politics and religions and all of that. But recipes, sports. I mean, these are all such important parts of culture. And to get a really realistic world going, you have to focus on that stuff.
Is that it? Your favorite?
Yep.
Reasons why I love Wash.
What in the world was that? Was that like a human body? Was that a human body?
Maybe. Jane just said Mother of God. Do you know it now, John?
And take me where I cannot stand.
He's getting it.
Yeah, I'm still free, so you can't take the sky from me. I out to the black, tell me I can't coming back. You man, boil the sea, you can't take the sky from me.
He's got it, by George. He's got it.
You just helped me sync up my video, by the way.
Place I can be since I found serenity. And take the sky from me.
I have to listen to it a few more times to kind of get the ends of some of those lines, like the melody. It's a cool song.
That's good for only a couple episodes. So Hunter says that her timer is showing that it's like 2 hours in. Can somebody else look at theirs and see? Because mine is just showing that we're in like 4 minutes.
Mine says 2 hours and 4 minutes as well.
Yeah.
Mine
Well,
says
there's
0. 0, 0, 0, 0.
Yeah, I put a picture in the bug part of the Discord.
Not like we don't need more things in that bug channel
I
today.
Oh,
Sorry,
John.
Julie, you're in a different time zone than Mary.
You know
Yeah.
what? I'm gonna try and fix it and see. Like, I'm gonna try go back. And
I'm sure that
It
that's
was
what
doing
is.
that the other day too.
I'm
though.
sure that that's what it is. I'm
Yeah,
sure
it
that
has to
it's
be.
one host start. It's a host starting it, and there's a different time zone for it's something like that. Something weird.
Okay, that's probably
Yeah,
why.
'cause the-
Yeah,
the-
I'm in Mountain Standard.
Yeah, I mean the minutes are fine. Like it's showing we're at
Yeah,
4.
if you're Mountain Standard, then that makes total sense.
Yeah, I
You're
see.
2 hours.
I see 2 hours, 5 minutes, 47 seconds.
Yeah, you basically started the timer. You started the timer, but it thinks that you're Mary.
Okay.
But it thinks that you're, so it's like it's confused why Mary is in Mountain Time.
That poor ship is just floating around.
This show really gives me a lot of Alien vibes. I mean, I know we've talked about how these universes might be the same, but also just some of the way that that Joss sort of sets these scenes up and shoots them just has this Alien vibe to them.
I wonder if that was his intention. See the red balloon?
You
There's
know, like
Pennywise. It's
the
all floating down here.
flashlights, you know, going into like a deserted. It's cool.
John, you saw the red balloon. It's Pennywise.
See, this scene
I
I
did
always
say
get.
I did see that.
I always think of the Abyss. If you've seen that when they go into the other submachine.
That's what I think of too.
He said a little bit ago the word Mylar, and that's a trademark name of a DuPont. And 500 years we're still using that term.
Sorry, what was the term?
Mylar.
Oh, Mylar. Yeah.
It's like calling pop Coke, I guess.
Yeah, or if somebody were to give somebody else a Kleenex, be like, oh wow, Kleenex is still around. The company.
River's freaking out.
Can I get a timestamp for someone just to make sure the timer on the app is right?
10:32.
I have 10:27.
I'm ahead of all of you.
It's hard for me to see the time code on Hulu the way that they kind of count. They count down rather than show you the time.
Okay, I think I've got it fixed. Hopefully it works.
It's fixed. Nice work, Mary.
Thank you.
Mine looks a little odd now, but I know that we're okay, so it's all right.
Scavengers always.
What do you think she's doing?
Gonna jump out the airlock. This actress giving me Bill Nye the Science Guy
Sean?
vibes. Yeah.
I see it now.
Are you seeing it?
Yeah,
Look like
yes.
Sort of young Bill Nye.
he's pretty handsome.
He's very
This guy.
handsome. And he's amazing in person too.
You now won't be able to unsee that, just so you know.
Now I can't get the song out of my head either.
Me too. I started singing.
Jane's not just taking stuff, he's eating while he's doing it.
I mean, free food. I would too.
Also, look at some of that texture there on the walls. It's kind of got an alien vibe to it,
Oh, very much so.
right?
You can keep trying, John. You can keep.
I mean, I don't have to try much. It's really just falling right into my lap.
Spooky. Oh, nothing says spooky like a little creepy doll. Even 500 years, even 500 years in the future, you got yourself a little creepy doll. You know there's something paranormal on the way.
I think the point is to show that there were kids on.
Yeah, full family stuff.
Oh yeah, totally. That there were kids and that there's maybe some sort of creepy ghost kid coming.
Kids are creepy anyway in anything. So you had a doll and it's just
Oh no. Oh boy.
They are real dead. Like dead,
Wow.
dead.
This is
Ugh.
what year did this come out?
2002.
Yep.
2002 network television. That is intense.
That still makes me jump, and I watched it 1,000 times.
Same.
What do you think may happen here?
I did not jump at that in any way, shape, or form. I am broken.
it's all the thrillers you watch, Kendra.
You're what's known as desensitized.
Abso-freaking-lutely. I am not scared of anything.
Man.
Yeah, lots of mercy, but not.
Mal is very, very interesting character.
Jane said the guy was big, but doesn't look that.
Looked bigger when I couldn't see him.
That kind of feels kind of like maybe there's some reavers that are involved here.
The boogeyman?
I was right, or maybe I was right. Maybe he's wrong. But that just looked very kind of what we've heard about the horrifying aspects of the Reavers.
I just love how freaked out Jane gets at the mention of it.
Man, oh man, do I want to see what these Reavers look like. What if this is all in their heads? What if the stories don't match up to the actual reality of the Reavers?
That'd be interesting, huh?
Sure would. Because so far it's just a lot of talk. It's just like a lot of fear, and but we don't really know what they are, who they are, what they do. I will never not see a young Bill Nye now. Sorry.
I was just thinking that you ruined it.
Like really, I can't unsee it.
I love Kaylee.
She's
Me
awesome.
too. I just love the whole cast. I think that it's an interesting cast of characters.
I love it. It's not like if I screw up, you'll be able to yell at me because the thing will blow up. You see that they've been skinned?
Yeah, we don't need those details.
Yeah, you
It's
didn't have
there.
to say that out loud, Sherry.
Have they been skinned?
Yes.
I just
Yep.
Yup.
Jeez.
You're welcome.
You have any theories on River there, John?
No, but I have a feeling that Reavers didn't do this.
Didn't or did?
Did not. I'm feeling like maybe they didn't do it.
Smart Gilly.
Yes, she is.
Was it trying to drain fuel from the Firefly?
It was linked to it, and it was set that if they pulled away, it would have blown the engine.
It was basically a trap, so maybe they could, whoever did whatever to the other ship could come back and do it. Or kill him, or the other.
Oh, that's Alliance.
That
Yeah.
is Alliance.
There are 40,000 fireflies.
That's an interesting little detail. Like, I don't know why I needed to know that. I'm glad I know that, but I don't know why the writing needed to let me know that.
Probably to show that they're common, that they aren't like high class, elite, very, what's it called?
Like
the way Louis Vuittons
like
are, like
You
you don't
see-
get as many.
You see that right now they're pulling all of the stuff that they just hid out, so that when they hide River and Simon, they think that they were showing everything else, that there's nothing else to hide.
Careful, Sherry. That explanation goes a little too.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, no
But
spoilers.
there's a lot of talking, so they're completely missing everything. And actually, Mal had said it.
Don't you dare talk bad about that ship in front of Kaylee.
I love her answers.
She's amazing.
I just love this whole scene.
All that we're learning about their backgrounds through these little tidbits.
It's such a clever way to like sort of give us exposition on the characters.
What?
I love him.
She's still mad about them calling it junk.
Kaylee's so angry.
Nothing from Jane.
Have you ever been with a warrior woman?
He called them pirates.
Yes, he did.
There we go. Space pirates. I have something to say about this sort of the naming conventions in science fiction. It just came to me when he mentioned the world Persephone, you know, and just sort of the use of Greek mythology when in science fiction, when sort of expanding a universe outside of out of you know modern humanity, right? Like modern humans.
John, do you see that?
The number of officers looking under plates as if someone's going to hide under plate.
What's under that plate?
That's it.
Well, nobody said they were smart.
River's loving the view.
It's a great view.
I don't
Does
believe
River-
it. I want that.
Does River ever get more normal?
Oh,
Wait and see.
what's
Watch
normal?
and see.
Okay.
Real paper. He has his computer pads and now he's reading off of
Was it Hera, Hera, or Hera, Hara? My
ERA.
subtitles say, yeah, because my subtitles say Hara.
Nope, it's E. That's the best song.
Again, naming worlds through mythology.
There's a great line. May have been the losing side, still not convinced it was the wrong.
Hera was also the name of the child in Battlestar Galactica, John, remember?
Split down the middle. Yeah.
Dear God in heaven.
Kara, you're on mute.
What is going on with this guy?
Is that guy a Reaver?
I think that guy did it. I think that guy killed all of those people. I don't think Reavers have anything to do with any of this.
Listen.
I love this alliance captain. I mean,
His name is Harkin.
I really like his performance a lot. Who else is freaked out? The tension is thick.
Told
Yeah,
you
and I've
this was
seen
a
this
Halloween one.
It's good. It's got also got the sci-fi horror that we know from the Alien franchise.
Rolls eyes.
So you might just have a glimpse of what a reaver might look.
I mean, that a little underwhelming if that is what a reaver looks
John,
like.
I'm gonna show you a picture of what he did to himself.
I said what they
Yeah.
might look like. He wasn't done.
Jane said jerk. I wasn't calling you a jerk.
Good stuff.
Also, you got to remember it was network television. What more could they really do in 2002?
Perfect. All done. If
Well, I
anybody
mean, just
would like to join
the
us
reason
on
why I
the
think I hope, the reason why I think I hope that it's more interesting than that is this, like, the Reavers right now are this kind of, mysterious boogeyman, and I am a little afraid that that the mystery that I'm building in my mind about what they are, who they are, isn't disappointed by the reality of what they are, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I thought that guy was very kooky, a little crazy, but
What did you think of
uh,
his explanation?
what's up?
What did you think of Mal's explanation? Mal's explanation was they made
Yeah.
him watch, and so he had no other choice but to become one of them.
Do you want me to read what it says?
Yeah, no, I remember it. I got it. I don't know. There was a part. I mean, there's a part of me that was kind of like, oh, that's really interesting writing. There was another part of me that was like, I don't know. I mean, that I don't totally buy it. Just as like as a thing that would really happen. Other than it sounds really interesting and poetic. And again, I think maybe there's a little bit of a resistance that I have to the idea that this guy is like what I'm supposed to identify with a reaver, because my expectations have gotten really high for what they are. I'm really excited, and actually, like, to have those expectations really subverted in a very different and creative way, right? Like, we find out the reavers are really just built up in everyone's mind, that they're actually not quite what we thought they were, and not quite as bad or whatever, or just something. I don't know. I don't know what it would be, but that if they subverted it, my expectations in a very interesting, creative way, I would be really into it. But otherwise, like, I'm building up this really, this a lot of tension and build up for these, like, these people that, like, have even somebody like a Jane terrified, and that guy didn't look particularly terrifying, aside from the fact that he was crazy, and you don't want to walk into a room that he's in if he is behind you, like, other than that, he doesn't seem like all that scary. If I were to walk into a room and I were to see that guy standing on the other side of the room, I'd be like, you look really gross, but you don't have me shivering in my boots. And that's sort of the main thing.
Right, I agree. But he's not a reaper.
Yeah, I
he's a
hope not.
person he's a survivor who's just trying to imitate what he saw. So
Right. Yeah, that's why I say I hope not. I hope that he's not that. I hope he's not close at all to what a Reaver is. Like that's that I'm still, I've got a lot of build up for what these Reavers are, who they are, what their energy and their presence in a room is, all of that stuff. It's big. And that guy just seems like a crazy dude. Who cut himself?
Cut himself in weird ways.
there was a go ahead, Mary. I see you.
No, please go ahead. Hun.
I was going to say there was a line in this that I was wondering if you caught on when they found him and brought him onto the ship. Mal said, "It doesn't matter if we took him off the boat. It's the place he's going to live from now on." And I felt like that kind of went back to the discussion we had last week about Mal being stuck in Serenity Valley, which is kind of what the Alliance guy was talking to him about.
Oh,
So
right.
like that's how he identified with this guy and what he's going to do next or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did miss that. Or maybe I heard it, but it just didn't. It didn't have the meaning that it has now that you say it. But that's very interesting. Yeah.
So Mal's very much stuck in that valley. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked that one moment when Inara corrected him and said it's not the Serenity, it's Serenity, which I think is an important distinction.
And the next time he says the name, he doesn't use the.
Yeah,
The
that's
next time
correct.
he
Yeah,
says
I noticed that as well. But I think it's an important distinction because it makes the ship's name more the idea of serenity rather than like some label.
Yep, I agree. I'm nodding. Yeah, I keep forgetting y'all can't see me.
I was gonna say, talking about subverting expectations, I really love that exchange when Simon thinks that Mal's gonna turn him and his sister in, and Jane goes, "I knew it. I knew he had a reason for keeping you around." And then they open the door, and Simon and his sister aren't there. I just love that expectation that people like that Mal is actually as protective as you would expect of the two of them as his crew, even though there's this expectation that all he wants is money.
Right. Yeah. I'm starting to get confident in the character being good. Like I'm feeling relatively confident at this point that Mal is not going to betray people, that he is at heart a loyal person, a good person.
That he's not going to live up to the name, Mal, what his name.
Right. Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
In the Latin.
That's interesting.
That's what River said last
Yeah,
episode.
River pointed that out, but that is also Mal means bad.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
I thought it was interesting that he was that's the name of the character. Yeah,
that's interesting, but I don't feel it from the character. He feels good to me. And I don't. He does like these, really every once in a while does these, shocking things that are uncompromising, like kicking the guy into the engine and shooting the dude when he walked into the ship without a second thought, but it's never to a character who is innocent. It's never to somebody who is shows any kind of good qualities. So I feel now pretty confident going forward that I shouldn't expect this character to betray that aspect of his personality.
What do you think
Which I guess
about-
is a good thing, but it just means that I don't feel like I'm going to be surprised by some, him doing some dastardly thing.
Which
Yeah,
is
what do
funny
you-
because the characters around him don't have that security. Like Simon does,
I know.
and Jane does.
I know. And I don't know how to feel about that because I, as the audience member, I'm kind of like, just sit down. Nothing's going to happen to you. This guy's good, And I don't know if that's a good thing that I should be feeling that. Should I, as the audience, also, just for the sake of tension, be a little worried that they could be right?
Or should they
And-
be judging their lack of
Faith in him? I don't
character?
know. I don't know. Maybe, but that doesn't have a lot of narrative juice.
I remember watching this the first time with my husband. We kind of had that same discussion, and I was like, because again, we had like the whole he's stuck in Serenity thing. Like, I think Mary pointed out, he was a sergeant in the battle, and he lost most of his men in that battle. Like, it was a horrible thing, and he was in charge of those people. So now he's very protective of people under his care.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, feeling like he's going to protect these people is justified because we know what he's been through.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. But I'm just saying that, like, I now feel like I get that I understand that about the character.
Yeah.
And I don't feel I'm going to be Game of Thrones, that I'm going to be completely like shocked by something absolutely that I was not expecting from the character. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I guess there's just like a part of me that sort of feels like, well, if that's the case, why are we spending any energy at all, even like having characters question Mal? If we're really, as audience, feeling pretty confident that he's a good man and he's, at the end of the day, he's going to protect good people, then I don't, I don't need Jane to, like, keep sort of reminding me that, like, he could, what's he up to? He's, he's out for himself, and so that he's got to have another plan. And because I just don't think it's going to happen. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen.
I think
I guess
that's
it
what
could.
Jane
I guess
wants to happen.
it could conceivably happen, but I don't feel like that's the world that we've set up. And so if it did happen, if he did, like, really just do something so selfish for himself, something that was just, selling somebody out for, for a few pieces of gold, I think I would probably be upset.
Isn't that just Jane projecting what he would do on?
Yeah, sure.
More than
Yeah,
the fact that Mel would.
Sure. But then it's just a little character thing about Jane. Like, I don't need it to I don't need it to help. I don't need it to influence the narrative at all. Like, I don't need it to make me wonder, like to create suspense, ooh, what's going to happen here? Is he going to sell these people out? Like, no, he's not going to sell these people out. It's a little nitpicky thing, but it's just sort of that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't have any effect on me anymore when they say that, because I sort of feel like I get the character now. Something interesting that I was thinking about in this episode is something that is done here in this show that I feel like I haven't really seen before or heard before. Like, obviously, the Alliance is the Empire, right? Like, that's the equivalent of, like, the Empire in Star Wars.
Right, but are they really bad or not?
Well, okay. So that's the question. So that's the question, right? So we're gonna get into this discussion here, right? Because I think it's a really, really interesting. It's an interesting discussion because it really does kind of get get into like who's good, who's bad, like the sides in a war, and and all of that, like the history is written by the victors, all of that stuff is sort of wrapped up in all of this. When it's a trope that we see in sci-fi a lot, right? Which is, ragtag group of rebels we are meant to really care about, and this like really like oppressive, galactic powerhouse thing that is, we're supposed to be kind of like, we're supposed to want to fight against. And usually that trope is super crystal clear, right? Like the empire is called the empire, right? Like empires are already have like, in modern society have a negative connotation. Just the word empire has a negative connotation. And the emperor, their outfits, all of that stuff is like, meant to inspire sort of a sense of dread. But alliance, that's not a word that we usually hear in that context, right? World War II, the victors and, who we generally consider to be the heroes are the Allied powers, right? Versus the Axis powers, which sounds really, sort of evil and ominous. But here they're the Allied, the Alliance, which actually sounds more like Star Trek's Federation than it sounds like Star Wars Empire. In fact, I start to think to myself, the Alliance. Okay, who are they? Who are the members of that alliance? An alliance does. An empire sort of gives you the vision of one thing, one big collective thing, an all-powerful authority over all these people. But an alliance, that automatically, a word means different people all coming together, all allied under something. So I asked myself, what is the alliance made of? Just like the Federation, right? The Federation in Star Trek is made up of different, federated states of aliens. So it's really interesting. It has me asking all of these questions about, like, just from the get-go, like, how evil is the alliance, and how much of this is perspective? How much of it is we're seeing this through the eyes of the angry losers of the war? And because we're seeing it through their eyes, we have to see the alliance as sort of big, bad, and awful.
Well, they're awful enough that they want River for something. And obviously they've done something to her.
Right. Yeah, that's
at
true.
At this point, we don't know what it is.
Right. That's
so
true.
in the eyes of these characters, they are evil, at least in Simon and
Yeah,
River's
sure.
eyes.
And also in the eyes of me, right? Like if that is true and they were doing these horrible experiments on her, then that means that, at the very least, the alliance has an ugly side to it, like an ugly research arm side to it, which all, isn't that surprising. Big governments have that kind of stuff, sort of baked into them. But I just think in general, it's an interesting choice for Joss to have named it the Alliance, to give it this like a name that, we typically associate with the good guys.
What's your theory on that, though?
I don't have any ideas. I'm just right now. I'm just saying, like, these are things that are just kind of find interesting that I'm observing. They're making the world of Firefly just so much more like real and rich and like, they have me super curious about that world, wanting to know more. But I don't really know. I don't know what the theory is, only to say that that's a very interesting choice to give it a name that has more in our modern society, has more of a connotation of the good guys than a word like the Empire,
Could it be that the Empire got better at branding?
maybe, which I think which I think would be interesting. Which I would find that to be interesting.
Well,
sure.
I don't really know what the answer is.
I like that, Mary. That's.
I mean, I think that
have seen of the Alliance though.
Like, for example, like isn't the new version of the Empire in Star Wars, something called something really super ominous, like the New World Order or something like that. You know, just something that it's just like screams like bad guys, awful. You know, whereas this doesn't scream that. So I, you know, even though, you know, we are meeting characters that follow some of those tropes, right? Like a commander of a ship. But, you know, if you break it down, I mean, he's just doing his job, and he's being, you know, he truly believes that these people are likely criminals, and he doesn't want them to, you know, sort of con their way out of this, right? So you could also say like, guy's not necessarily like some sort of evil type dude. He's just an officer that it has, you know, that his job is to make sure that criminals are not don't slip past.
But let's look at what else we know from the Alliance from our point of view, not necessarily from the character's point of view. When we first meet the 2x2 Hands of Blue, they're following up on the report of the Firefly, but they don't tell him what they want. They didn't come all the way across the universe or the galaxy for you know, what did they say, for some scavengers. They came for the girl. So they're being very mysterious even amongst their compatriots. And then in the train job, they're on the train, something gets stolen from under them, and their commander says they have important things to do. Keep them moving, get them back on the train, get them moving. So right there, we see this dismissal of these like backwater people's small problems are not our problem.
Okay.
So when you hear
I do see that. What am I supposed to get from that? What do you think I'm supposed to get from that? Or what did you get from that?
When you hear Mal talking about how the Alliance meddles and, you know, dismisses as they wish, we're seeing proof of that from their own mouths. It's like I would trust his perspective. I'm seeing evidence of his perspective. You were questioning before how much of it is Mal not liking the fact that he lost versus the actual reality of the way the Alliance is run.
So okay, so is the Alliance, are they dismissing people like Mal, these sort of, you say, backwater individuals who are sort of living lawlessly in space, because they see themselves as better than them?
No, she meant
the
people on that planet where they
the backwater people are the people whose medicine got stolen. This is medicine they needed. It was to survive, and it's not important enough for the government to follow up on when they're right there in the town.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's lame. That for sure, that's lame. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I'm just saying, like,
that is sort of that is, yeah. I get it. That makes sense. That is sort of like your typical Robin Hood type thing, right? Where, you've got these like, yeah.
I don't want to discourage your discussion of, like, you know, what are the perspectives and what are the arguments. I love, like I said, maybe the reason he named it the Alliance is because they're selling you, like, it's kind of like be careful what you wish for, right? They're selling you a sugar pill that in the end harms you, kind of.
Refresh me again, just really quickly. Refresh me on the medicine stolen. The medicine was stolen.
That was a cargo that Mal was stealing. Was medicine for that town, where they ended up being.
They had the Boden's malady, and so it's a degenerative neurological disease that has no cure, but has medicine that makes it manageable. Sorry?
It was called Boden's.
The Alliance didn't care. The Alliance didn't care that medicine was stolen. It wasn't their problem that that planet, that town, those people weren't going to get what they needed. They didn't care. They were going to investigate it. But then other times when they come across somebody like Mal out in space, out on the outer edges of the borders or whatever they were referring to there, they do. So it's just a matter of big government.
I lost that last bit. When they find people like Mal in space, they do what?
They do care about what's going on with them, and kind of. I'm sorry, my connection seems to be poor.
Yeah, your connection's going out. I'm hearing half of what you're saying because it sounds interesting. I think I might have some perspective on it, but I'm only getting half of what you're saying.
Let me see if I can get to prepare the house. For some reason, my Wi-Fi is not reaching where I am. I was just saying, like, okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mary. Oh,
Nope.
gee.
Gone.
Harvest, everyone.
Those with phones that can harvest or computers that can harvest, please harvest.
Yes, please.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that.
Okay. I think I'm going to build on Chris's point.
Could you clarify what you think Chris is?
Yeah. So I think her point is we see that, you know, the people whose medicine got stolen, it wasn't important enough. They need to move on. But when they come across Mal in space, they decide they have to stop and deal with it because of all these minor infractions.
Yeah. Here's my perspective. Here's my perspective on that. Is that, and I think that this is this story is really doing a great job of showing this, how the personal and the political often sort of get the lines often blur. Because what we're seeing are individuals who are making a decision on what they want or don't want to do, right? And sometimes you have people in authority using their authority to do what they want to do, right? And then at times using their authority to justify why they can't do it, right? There might be plenty of like actual technical by the book reasons why they cannot actually get involved in the medicine thing, you know? But there is so much, it seems like, anger from this war and so much distaste for the other side that there's then always room for situations like that to happen, where we're going to reinterpret the rules in this particular moment to deal with this person that I do not like. And I think that's what's happening. You know, when you see the Alliance and Mal in a room together, what I see are two sides of a war that hate each other.
I'd agree with that, absolutely. And I think that, like you were saying, personalities, there are some people who they're still embittered from the war, so they are, you know, picking up on everything. And then there's some who the war's over, they won, they were always powerful, they don't need to prove that anymore, so they move on. But when you go back to this idea of, is the name Alliance, or does the term Alliance take away from the possibility of it being an evil empire? I'm not so sure I buy the personality versus the political argument.
Oh, what do you mean? I mean, you're saying, oh, you're just saying it's an evil empire wrapped up in like in something that, you know, looks innocuous.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the personality argument might work for the little situations we've been talking about, you know, the individual situations. But I'm not so sure that just because the name is Alliance doesn't take away from the fact that they are trying to mask their true intentions.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like you're basing that off of more knowledge than you have than I do, because I don't have enough knowledge yet about what this alliance is to make that firm
Yeah,
that kind of a firm judgment on it. I can say that they seem big. They seem certainly to be, controlling the universe in a way that feels very ordered. And they certainly, seem uncompromising when it comes to crime. And then I see little moments like this where it's very clear you have two people from two different sides, one of them in a position of power and authority in the winning side, and and you see moments like that. But I don't know yet enough about what this alliance is, and my gut tells me that you're probably right. It is probably like this. We'll start to see more tropes that align with this very classic, like, the big bad empire type thing. But I just find it interesting that he didn't name it that. And if it's as simple as that they are really like this, like, big evil empire that you're supposed to eventually understand to be just big and oppressive, but they are just really good at rebranding themselves or branding themselves in a way that makes them look, much more inclusive, then I would find that interesting. But with three episodes in, aside from their ships looking just absolutely like really big and Blade Runner-y, I don't have enough yet to say that they are 100% sure that I'm looking at the Empire from Star Wars. But
John, don't you wonder at the beginning?
But there are parts of it that certainly do feel like it. But then there are other parts of it, like just the name of it, and and some of the behavior of some of these people in authority don't seem quite as cartoonish and two-dimensional as you get in Star Wars. I think that, like, the Empire in Star Wars is very like, just we are not. Yeah, we're not supposed to get much more from from those Tarkins and whatnot, than like that these characters are like tyrannical.
I think at this point, though, like in episode 3, in episode 3, you kind of like get the idea that there was a war, and obviously it was either an alliance of people who came together to take over the government for all. It's something else, like an evil empire style thing. But I don't know that it's evil. It's just some kind of big government in my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, if that government is made up of like a bunch of different alien races that all came together, and they,
but they don't have to be alien, do they?
Or sorry, not. I keep saying aliens. They're not aliens. They're all humans. But but just different cultures that all came together and that all banded together to
or different planets that were terraformed and became powerful.
Yeah, and they all just decided, like, we want our galaxy to be this. We're going to ally together, and we're going to push out those who want it to be that, and that's what we're going to do. And of course they may, for whatever reasons, have superior technology. I don't really know, but that's not enough to tell me that they are like an oppressive thing. I'm gonna need to see more. I'm saying this with a little bit of a grain of what I'm saying with a grain of salt, because obviously I'm not like, of course I'm seeing things like the blue hand gloves people, and like and of course, like, I'm really curious about what's going on here with River and what she went through and all of that stuff. But more than anything, what I think I'm trying to say is that I feel like Joss is at the very least not leaning on that trope in a really, really thin, one-dimensional way. He's asking me to question some of these things, which I like that.
I completely agree. I actually was going to say, I find it a fault that the Empire in Star Wars is called the Empire. Like, there's never any time where I'm not supposed to like the Empire or believe there's any hope.
Right.
Which kind of, spoiler, kind of works against some of these new movies where I'm supposed to believe there could be some good in some of the characters who could come back and be saved. No, they're part of the Empire. Like, I completely agree that it works against it, or like it's very obvious that the Empire is evil. I think it's great that the alliance is written as it is. I'm just saying that from the 3 episodes we've watched so far, I struggle to consider them not even.
Right, sure.
Well,
But also remember, stories are perspective, and our protagonist is Mal, and Mal is on the other side. So from a storytelling perspective, I mean, there's like there's an adaptation, I guess you would call it, of Beowulf called Grendel, and it's Beowulf from Grendel's perspective, and of course Grendel is in that telling of the story. Grendel is not the bad guy, right? So story is all perspective, and this is the story we're on. It's the story of Mal and his crew, and Mal is on the other side of that. So it makes complete sense that we would be feeling like his antagonist is our antagonist. What I do hope is that there are at least moments in the story where Mal at least questions at times how much his antagonists are actually the epitome of evil. And I like the idea that the Alliance wouldn't just be this epitome of evil that we get in Star Wars, because in Star Wars, they really just truly were like just created from the get-go as sort of
They're the dark side.
Yeah, they're the dark side. It's really just like light and dark, like there's no gray. And so yeah, you're right. Like, without spoiling, the new movies try to subvert that a bit, but it just doesn't work because of that.
John, so when we watch these episodes, in the first episode, they're out on what they consider kind of the outer edge of society, or where people would live and things. They talk about being out on the, I can't even, the words escape me, but like the outer boundaries. And then the second episode, the planet they're going for is also one that's kind of out on the edge. And the Alliance is pushing further out in their patrolling. The Reavers are pushing further out. They refer to these things in the episodes. So you think about like Mal, the way he's choosing to live and the why he has to be like a smuggler or scavenger is because he's trying to stay as far away from the core or the Alliance or the inner planets or whatever it is we don't see, to stay away from them. And so in his mind, they're not necessarily good or bad. He just doesn't want to be around them. But we don't really always know why. Do you have any theories on why you think the Alliance is pushing further out now and patrolling more heavily in these outer areas? Or they're sending people further out? Or did you miss some of that earlier on? I don't know. I sometimes think about that because...
Sorry, I've been talking to you, but I was in the app harvesting and I thought my mic was on, and then I suddenly realized that your responses were...
Harvest,
like my mic was on. So, no, I do not have any theories. If you were just to ask me, like, without saying like there's anything mysterious going on, I would just say the obvious, which is expansion. Just sort of manifest destiny type stuff. Like they are just growing the universe and pushing the losers further and further out because of it. And it seems to make sense to me that Mal would just not want to be around them, right? Because he doesn't relate to that side of that, to the Alliance and the Alliance ways.
Yeah, I was just
that seems like just like the surface. It sounds to me like there might be something more mysterious going on that I should probably be focused on, but
it's just in the 3 episodes. It's just in the 3 episodes. There's been a few times where they just mention how far out they are. Right. So when they're talking about stuff once in a while.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting that talking about the government and so on, there's a warrant out for the siblings, but it's classified. They don't have any idea what the siblings have done.
Yeah, but that doesn't seem that doesn't seem odd to me, right? Because it sounds like to me that River was part of some extremely like classified government scientific research project that maybe was potentially going to give them better, military technology or something like that. I mean, that's the story of like governments going back thousands of years. We protect our new ideas and our new secrets and all of that kind of stuff.
What is your take on River, John? I'm curious what you think she's about, because so we've met her. We see, she's young. We know she's extremely intelligent. We know they were messing with her mind. And we know that she has these she has these reactions to things that nobody sees, but they don't know that's what she's reacting to, but we do as the audience, because when she has a reaction, then we see something that comes. So what do you think about all that, out of curiosity?
I don't really know, because the River character is really I'm sort of hot and cold on the character. Every once in a while I'm like finding her really interesting, and then sometimes I think I'm getting a little tired of the like
what looks crazy.
Yeah, kind of the weird, like crazy person, biting, a lot of that stuff, like biting fingernails and all that stuff.
You don't have any theories on her yet, then?
Not yet. I mean, other than I think that, I mean, maybe if this is a theory, I think that she's like super, that she's like, I don't know, like really, like potentially an alien. No, potentially like an Ubermensch type. She feels a little bit like an Ubermensch type trope. Some sort of like a super person, like a super.
Like she's
soldier.
a mutant?
Yeah, like a super soldier or something. That she was like created by the government. She's super gifted, and she's been like formed by the government to become this like secret, powerful weapon. Like maybe she's like, she can move things with her mind, or maybe she can like, maybe she's like, we find out that she's like, I mean, the actress I know is a dancer, so was an ex-dancer. So I know that movement might be an important part of the character. And then I think, well, why would movement? And then maybe she's like super, dexterous, and like we see her in battle at some point. Maybe she's like super awesome, like doing like backflips and stuff. Doing like backflips and stuff, cartwheels.
So earlier you were talking about Jane, and I guess I was always kind of entertained by Jane's like ideas that Mal has some kind of other plan, because that is something he would do. But it doesn't really bother me that he does that. And I can see why Simon is a little skeptical, because he doesn't really want to trust. He wants to trust, but he doesn't trust anybody because he's kind of young himself.
I get all of that from a character perspective. Totally get it from a character perspective. It makes total sense. But from a narrative perspective, I'm just saying it doesn't really do much for me, because I, the audience, don't put much stock into their feelings. I, the audience member, have already made my own decisions, or my own I've lost English. My own impression of the, thank you very much. My own impression of the character, and it's good. And those impressions about the character were given to me by the writer in previous episodes with the things that the character did. So now I don't really put much stock into their feelings, other than, and so because of that, their feelings just seem like character traits, but don't really move the narrative at all, or they don't cause tension, they don't do any of that kind of stuff. And so from a narrative perspective, they feel a little bit, they don't feel quite as
necessary.
Necessary, yeah. Like they kind of, I mean, there are lots of ways to build up a character, you know, and there are ways to build up a character and add like character traits while also building tension.
How about
And
so John, I just want to see because
Joss Whedon,
Joss Whedon and Steph are the only ones on the
Joss Whedon
Well,
is
no,
gonna one day hear this recording, and he's never gonna want to come join us on Remarkets.
If we make it that big, I think that we'll find a way to redeem ourselves.
Yeah.
So Steph and Shelley, you are the other two on the couch that have not seen this before. And you guys are being really quiet. Do you guys agree with John on some of these things regarding Jane or just kind of, do you have ideas about some of these characters? I'm kind of curious because I get where you're coming from, John, super sci-fi and all that, but those two are not quite as sci-fi as you, I don't think. So I wonder if they have a different way of seeing it. Maybe. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to keep up with what's going on in the show and learning the characters and everything. But my internet totally crapped out on me like 10 minutes into the show, so I was trying to catch up. John was talking, so I might have missed a couple things that he said. But I don't know all like the he compares everything to Star Wars. I don't know Star Wars that well. Like I've watched Star Wars. Like
you don't have to know Star Wars. He's just kind of using him as a parallel.
I don't know. I don't know that I've watched anything like this, so I'm just trying to learn.
So what do you think so far? What you've seen, like if ignoring the parallels, what are your instincts on these characters?
I don't know. I think they seem like I like how this is filmed, and it's not things are I don't know. They look a little bit more ugly than like they're not as polished as maybe Star Wars stuff. But anyway, I don't know. The characters are I like this little team of whether we're supposed to agree with what their job is or not. I think they're likable. They're likable characters. I think you want to root for them.
It's a ragtag group that comes together.
Absolutely. But I always have to watch the episodes twice. So I'll
watch it with
catch
you
everything.
again.
So Steph, that means the next time we'll talk before the episode on your impressions of this one.
So I heard you guys talking about earlier on, I guess it was John and somebody else was mentioning how the ship, the textures and things on the ship reminded them of the world of Alien as well. I know, Mary. I'm just saying though. Like I was trying to remember. I haven't seen Aliens a really long time. So, is it just because it's a little bit more dingy, and as Steph didn't say, it's polished to Star Wars that you think that, John, or are you still going back to the W from the canon in the first episode, and that it could be all in the same world? So maybe Joss intentionally put that look into his show.
Here's what I think. I think that Joss is inspired, at least somewhat, by the Alien franchise and by the first Alien movie specifically.
He's written some of it. So
yeah, which is especially that first Alien movie is so historic in reimagining science, sort of space science fiction in a really cool way, where space science fiction is being treated with the kind of realism in a lot of aspects that we would get from like a film like 2001. And it was also really groundbreaking in like special effects and all these like really cool things that it did. And I feel like I can feel the homage to it in like little scenes here and there, like that in the first episode, that dinner scene where they're around the table. Oh, totally felt like the scene, in Alien where they're eating and the alien pops out of the stomach. And walking through the ship, walking through an abandoned ship with your, full space suit on, the actual like helmet lit, flashlights that have like these, you know, it's so like so clear that a lot of that is inspired by the same kinds of stylistic choices made in the early Alien franchise. And
What
so
year did Alien come out? Did that first movie come out? Was that in the 80s or the 90s?
80s. That the first one was
Okay.
80. Hold on.
I can't remember.
I think it was
So-
79.
Sigourney
Alien
Weaver
was
did the first
79?
one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was
It was-
79.
Oh,
My
yeah,
husband
it
is
was
a-
79.
Yeah,
That's
my
right, it was-
husband's
it was
a
79.
super
Second,
Alien
and
fan,
then
and yeah.
Aliens was
Yeah.
in 86. Covenant was in 17. Alien 3 was in 92.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Alien.
I was just trying to see how far removed the first one was from when 2002 when Joss was putting this out.
Joss
So-
wrote Resurrection, and that was in 97.
So I don't think that Joss was. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to think so, but just because that's like how I like my narratives. But I don't think that Joss was intentionally creating a merging of those two universes. I think that he was inspired by it, and he clearly added stylistic choices to the world that were little nods. You know, I think things like the inside texture of that ship, the flashlights, you know, a lot of that stuff. And then I think that he, you know, just decided he'd put a little Easter egg, like, you know, hat tip to a movie franchise that he really respects by putting the W on that turret. That's I would probably guess is the extent of it. But he did it.
Yeah.
He did it, and now it's in the world, and I can't unsee it. So in my mind, I'm like now justifying how it is actually in the world.
I was my husband, because I said like I watched this with him for the first time, and he said the same thing. He is a Alien super fan. I will like put pictures up somewhere of like his Alien room with all of his figurines and everything. And when they're walking through, like even with the Serenity, like or just Serenity, he was commenting on like how similar it was to Alien, especially like there was a shot of River, just like a widescreen shot of her walking past the camera with her lit from above. That was very reminiscent of Aliens. And like you said, the textures on the wall and the grating everywhere is very, very like Alien-esque.
Yeah. And she kind of has a little bit of a Newt quality to her when you first meet her.
Yeah, a
All
little.
kind of rag hair. Oh, we found her in like a, well, I mean, she's
Frozen box.
in the frozen box, but she did have a little bit of like we could have found her in an air duct too if we want, you know. But I think that the Wayland W was probably just a little Easter egg like hat tip more than anything else. But I have now claimed it as being part of the because you can, why not?
Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about the show when I first watched it, though. Not the alien aspect of it, like the alien universe, but I liked the look of the show because it was, you know, it's sci-fi, it's space and stuff like that, but it wasn't as shiny as like some of the Star Wars stuff or other space kind of things. Everything wasn't perfect looking and super clean and all that. And I like that about this show because it kind of gives it a more real feel in a way, even though it's not real. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that was what was so cool about the first Alien movie, you know, because it was such a low budget. You know, they had to do everything like they had to get really creative and so they had to rely on just it feeling real and the performances being real and the lighting being much more real. And then, you know, practical effects had to be really creative and, you know, using like jelly, like you know, raspberry jelly or something like that, you know.
Don't ruin
like,
raspberry jam for me. Don't ruin it, please.
But it feels like, you know, the show also kind of, well, but this was an expensive show apparently, but for network television it would probably be. I mean, by today's standard it would probably not have been, but can we talk about?
I think the look
Yeah.
for this show is meant to convey the difference between the haves and have-nots. So when you look at the Alliance ship is nowhere near what Serenity is. And Serenity is even better than this, last ship they came across, because this was supposed to be poor people trying to reestablish on a new.
Yeah, I'm starting to like imagine the Serenity as like the equivalent of like a real beat up pickup truck.
Sturdy,
You
Very
talk
reliable.
down about my Serenity. I'm like Kaylee in that matter. It's not junk.
No,
So-
it's not junk.
No,
I mean,
it's a beloved
people love. I
thing.
mean, pickup trucks are loved for a reason. They've got like great utility, great like use, and and people get really attached to them, and because they go through so much use, they live for a long time, and they end up looking a little junky looking in their later years, and people get really attached to them and don't want to lose them. So that's my comparison.
What was the other thing you wanted to talk about?
Just
I
said
want-
I agree with him.
What's up?
Donnie said he agrees with you.
Cool. Can we talk about this naming thing that I was mentioning
Yes,
during the
please.
episode? All right. So this is just something that I was just thinking about. And it's just more of a general comment on science fiction. This idea that like it's a
The
real
Greek mythology names, you mean?
yes, it's a real common trope in science fiction, which is to lean on Greek and Roman mythology for science fiction nomenclature, names of planets and names of ideas and all of that kind of stuff. And I get it from the standpoint of we have for a very long time been using Greek and Roman terminology, especially for talking about the cosmos and astronomy and astrology and all of that, right? But there's also a part of me that's sort of like, if we were to jump ahead 500 years in the future, wouldn't we be using some terminology that is from today? Like, wouldn't there be like the Roman equivalent to think like why aren't any planets named Dorito or Honda?
I was just going to ask you, what names have those kind of impact of strength or power or
Reebok, like you know what I mean? Like I would really appreciate it if a science fiction film was done in a very grounded, realistic. We're not trying to be cheeky. We're not trying to be funny. And there's a world called Reebok.
John, I'm going to send you a picture after all of this is done that shows you all the different planets.
I was going to say,
Okay.
did you catch that there was a planet Bernadette?
No, but I like that.
The transport ship left Bernadette and was heading to a new planet. So, there's some in there. But
There's some in
back
there.
to your point,
That's cool.
I would think that the worry is if you make it too new, like if you make it relevant today, it takes you out of the world of it being from the future. So you want to get
I think there's a way to do it. Like, I just think that it would be cool if somebody could do far future science fiction and take things that are mundane to our world that did not exist even 100 years ago, that are just ingrained in the world that we have today.
Demolition
and-
Man. Didn't they do that with Taco
Yes,
Bells? They
yeah.
said
Demolition
it was
Man.
only Taco Bells.
Yeah, but that was done in kind of a little bit of a cheeky way. I'm talking like in this way where it's like where the word has become something new, the way that language does evolve, right? Like we've got currently our language is made up of all kinds of words that have this really interesting history to where they began. And if you go back to where they began, you'd be like, oh, wow, like I can't believe, like that's where that expression comes from, or that's where that word originated, the etymological, origins of that word kind of come from that thing. I wouldn't have even thought of it. And at that time, that thing might have actually been pretty like pop. It might have been really like, you know, kind of mass culture. And I think, you know, for creating realism in science fiction, I think that it would be really cool for a science fiction writer to really like challenge themselves to not lean so heavily on a trope like that, because it is a trope to name all of the things in your sci-fi world things from Greek and Roman mythology. It's just like
So
we've
John,
seen
I
it
got
a
a
million times.
message. Diana sent a message, and it's a good point. She says that she gets your point. She can't come up and talk right now. She gets your point, but she thinks that it would be too expensive for a show to use modern day references because they would have to get permission from the companies that own.
Probably so. A lot of them, yes. A lot of stuff is copyrighted, but maybe there's some stuff that we could use that aren't necessarily copyrighted. Like yes, it would be amazing if like we had a totally like grounded drama sci-fi project set like 1,000 years in the future on the planet Reebok. And they never really like explain why it's called Reebok. It's just like, that's a word, you know, that's like an old word that like, you know, sort of represents speed and, you know, and we don't, you know, oh, if you can like really, if you know language, you can follow its etymological roots to this shoe that was sold back in the 20th century, you know. But now we don't use it in that regard at all. We use it to mean like, you know, speed.
Diana thinks we should use the word streaming because it's kind of generic. There's a lot.
Right. We're streaming. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say like we've got plenty of weird words that didn't exist, like, you know. Even 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that I think that would be cool to use them in a non like silly way. Like there's definitely sci-fi that does that in like a humorous way, like and tries to be funny and be more of a social critique on our modern world of consumerism and how that will probably shape our future. But to have one do it in just a really subtle way that like has you and set in a really grounded, realistic sci-fi world would just be freaking cool. And that to me is like, would be like just absolutely awesome world building. Because like I said, you know, world building, like really good world building focuses on stuff like that, focuses on how histories do evolve. And it's so easy to lean on like politics and religion and these big things because of course they're the most obvious things that we see. But cultures are made up of so many other small things, right? Like recipes, music, sports, you know. I want to know the games of that world. I want to know the tastes of that world, the sounds of that world. And I just think the really great world builders focus on that kind of stuff or give that kind of stuff just as much importance as like the big, you know, big themes.
Did you watch Battlestar Galactica, the reboot?
I did, yeah.
Oh,
That's another one that uses like a ton of just like, you know, Greek mythology type stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they use religion, but they kind of flip it in a way, stuff like that. I was just wondering if you watched that because they have some of that world building you like, but then they also have some of the stuff you don't like. So I was just curious if you.
It's not that I don't like it. It's not that I don't like it.
The stuff that you would like to see done differently.
I'm just sort of like, oh, that's easy, you know? Like,
I shouldn't say that you don't like it, but stuff you'd like to see done slightly differently as opposed to traditionally.
Like Lord of the Rings, you know, like Lord of the Rings has got like, you know, you've got all kinds of really interesting nuances of the world that don't have to do with those big like battles of good and evil. You have just small things like the food that the hobbits eat, you know, like the name for the different times of the day when you eat breakfast, you know, right? Second breakfast, you know, and just that kind of stuff is to me like is just it's the show of a really good world builder that understands that cultures are not just black and white, that cultures, and that's what world building is creating, it's building cultures. That cultures have so many small little accents to them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna tomorrow see who I can contact at Reebok to see if I can't get the rights.
So you can create your own song.
You're gonna start a space show.
You can name a planet Reebok.
You can have Reebok
versus
I actually
Nike.
have been to the Reebok. Those right. Never mind. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was
No,
just saying
Shelley,
you should have
go ahead,
Reebok versus Nike in the war, Shelley. That's all. You can go ahead.
Oh, I think I've been to like their headquarters in it was in Boston, outside of Boston. It was right beside the Instron where I went to buy a tensile tester a long time ago. But they had the coolest site because everybody was outside like running around and doing stuff, being active. I thought, man, I want to work
Nike.
there.
Nike.
Nike's the same way.
No,
And
no,
Nike,
no,
I used
no,
to
no.
do work for Nike. I used
No,
to
no,
sell
no.
TPU to Nike, so
Wait, hold on. Nike.
I know people there.
You could totally do it with Nike. Nike is named after a Greek god.
Yes.
Greek god Nike, the Greek god Nike. So you could actually name a planet in a sci-fi universe, the planet Nike, and people wouldn't know whether you're just following the same old boring trope of naming your planet after some mythological Greek character, or whether the word Nike has become something bigger because of the old 20 and 21st century company Nike that sold shoes.
Or Puma. Those are just big cats. or what's the other one?
Tesla.
British Knights. Do they still make those?
Not
British
saying.
Knights.
BKs, yeah.
That's right, BKs. You didn't call them British Knights. Those
No.
are BKs.
No, but if you use that word, it'd be kind of generic.
Okay, before it all devolves down to all the names we can use, I'm just gonna say thank you very much to everyone for coming.